Let's go. Come on. Come on. It's working. Let's go. We got 16 in here. 16 of you guys are in here. Hey, mess around with the chat, guys. I want to see if that works. I suppose you got to do a YouTube channel, but Mackerel got involved and like they did it pretty quickly. So we're here. Come on. Come on. 17. We got all of you guys in here. We need one more, actually. One more, right? We got 18, I think. 18. 18. Come on. It's working. I've had a great day. I hope you guys are having a good day. I've had a great day. Second hour was so smooth. It was awesome. It was awesome. So let's get into it. Let's get into it, right? Yes. Yes. What does POG mean? Are you talking smack? Who's Red Boston? You're supposed to use your real names. What is this? That's sweet. Awesome. All right. Got everyone in here. Sweet. All right, so today all we're going to do is supply and demand review. Supply and demand review. For some of you guys, today will be like the easiest class ever. And a couple of you guys, like, I want to make sure we're good to go. I think it was what, Tyler? What's your name, Tyler? I think Tyler had Mr. Andreessen last year, or Mr. Pierce. So I got to look into and see if he's good to go on that. No pressure. Shreya, I didn't have Shreya, but I mean, you are related to Vikas, so like you're probably insanely great. I think everyone I had, other than you guys. So yeah, just a little supply and demand review for you guys. Remember, be good in the chat. I'm gonna make some of you guys mods. Whoa, that's retracted. I'm gonna make some of you guys mods. Only people I trust. But you got to be a little mean sometimes. We can't be power hungry. Okay. Awesome. All right. So everything's good. Audio's good. Picture is good. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. But first, do we have any questions? Do we have any questions on today? Right. So we're gonna start on YouTube Live. I'm gonna walk you through a few, supply and demand reviews and whatnot, and then you guys are going to complete problem set 2.1. I haven't put it up there yet because I don't want you guys doing it while I'm reviewing, because some of you guys probably could just kill it right now. I want you guys still paying attention to make sure you're good. And then afterwards, we'll chill out in Google Meet, and then class will be over at 2 o'clock, because from 2 to 2:30, I'm going to meet with some of your parents for open house. All right? Good to go. Let's hit it. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Yeah, see, this is a lot better than Google Meet. I'm telling you guys, it's a lot better than Google Meet. Like, Google Meet's sweet, but that's for like after the direct instruction. This, I have like so many more tools I can do, and it'll make lectures less boring, right? Which is probably be the goal. All right, so don't you guys miss this? A familiar slide. I miss it so much. Anyway, all right, so some of you guys might want to have like a little notebook and like pencil out, right? So you can draw these graphs. It's going to be a pretty big obstacle that we're going to have to deal with, is like you're not going to get a lot of graphing practice unless you do it yourself, right? Like the problem sets I'm going to give you this year do not look like the problem sets that Micro received last year. They look a little different. So you're going to have to kind of be on your game, right? Like all I'm going to ever ask you about is like what happens to price, level, quantity, does supply or demand increase, decrease, among other things. I'm not going to ask you to draw graphs, right? But if the AP test is what it was 2 years ago, which currently it is, you're going to have to know to draw graphs and all that. The old teaching style. I hope it's good, Jenna. I hope it's good. So just like you got to be like self accountable with that. You got to be drawing your graphs. Like you're not going to be able to do that on the problem set. So follow along with me. I think I got 6 supply and demand questions for you. We're going to work through it. I'm going to go be kind of slow, right? Just because it's so long ago. And then, is that the Travis Scott? I've heard of that. Actually. At McDonald's, right? And then afterwards, we're going to do supply and demand like regular. What changes supply and demand? How to read price and quantity. The big thing I want to go over is like if price changes and we move about our curves, we go to disequilibrium, what does it look like? Like students always struggle with that. Even my seniors in micro that like did really good last year. And then after that, I'm going to do double shifting for a little bit, and then you guys are going to work on problem set 2.1. But I'll be hanging out with you guys, and we can sort of do that together. Okay? Awesome. Now you guys behave in the chat, all right? I don't want to make mods already on day one. All right, cool. All right, so the first thing, it says, oops, I just gave it away. It says, new grilling technology cuts production time in half. So the first question you ask yourself is, does it change supply or does it change demand, right? Keywords to look for: production, right? That's a supply shifter. Production, resources, right? When you see resources or production, or any of the factors of production like mentioned, it's going to be a supply shifter, all right? So if we have new grilling technology and you are like, a burger restaurant, you're going to be able to produce more burgers, right? With half the resources or half the time, right? So you can make, twice as many burgers in the same amount of time. You're gonna be able to produce more burgers, quite simply. So supply is going to increase. So when supply increases, you always draw it to the right. Do not forget. Do not say supply goes up, because a lot of students move it like upwards, right? Increase to the right, decrease to the left. Then after that, a lot of students make this mistake, right? A lot of students will be like, so like if new grilling technology cuts production time in half, like price is going to have to do this and quantity is going to have to do this. Don't even think about like what happens to price and quantity. That's the purpose for the graph, right? So you just look at your graph, like where does the new X mark the spot, right? Draw that down, that's Q1, and then draw it over to your price, that's P1, and then just like read, the number line. Quantity has to increase. Q1, if there was numbers on this line, Q1 would have to be greater than QE, so quantity will increase in this burger market, and then price will certainly decrease in the burger market. And kind of going back to yesterday, right, we talked about circular flow. This is the product market, right? Because we're talking about products, we're talking about goods and services. It's not the resource market, aka the factor market. This is the product market. Cool. I know some of this is like super boring and super easy for you guys, but a little refresher on supply and demand doesn't hurt anybody, right? Okay. Next up, price of chicken sandwiches, a substitute, increases, right? So related goods. We know that that is a shifter of both supply and demand. Unless it specifically says what happens to supply, it will always be a demand shifter, right? So, and also you guys, you put questions in the chat. It's going to be like a good 20-second delay, but like I'll still get to it, all right? Or like just save them for Google Meet, but ask questions. But anyway, so if I like burgers and I like chicken sandwiches, they're substitutes, right? Like one good replaces the other, right? Like I'm either going to eat one or the other. I don't eat both. Actually, I usually do order both. But if the price of chicken sandwiches goes up, I'm going to like avoid chicken sandwiches, right? I'm going to move to be wanting to be more willing and able to buy more burgers, right? So demand will increase for burgers, right? This is not going to change the production capability of burger restaurants. If chicken sandwiches are higher priced, right? It's just going to make people want to buy more burgers. So find where the new X marks the spot, our new equilibrium. Draw it down, that's Q1. Draw it over, that's P1. Read it, right? Quantity increases, price increases. It's that simple. Don't overthink it. Like just use your graph, okay? Please, please, please be graphing, all right? When you do your problem set today, graph on like a scrap sheet of paper. Don't just like do it in your head. That's when mental mistakes occur. You don't want that. Think about how many times you guys did test corrections last year and you filled in silly mistake, right? And and you look at your test, you're like, oh my gosh. Graph, label, don't forget. Anyway, all right, so here's a tough one. And believe it or not, all the things that we're about to learn in AP Microeconomics this year, this is still the number one most missed question on the AP test. Always. It always is, right? Is when price changes, people want to change their curves. No, if price simply changes, there's no change to the willingness and ability to buy or the willingness and ability to sell, just change your price, right? Demand and supply does not change unless something external happens, right? Like some sort of other force happens in this market. Price of hamburgers goes from $3 to $1, so how do I illustrate that? I just draw price decreasing, right? I could actually label these because they gave me real numbers. This would be $3, this would be $1. Draw a dashed line going across, and then where does it hit your first curve, right? It hits my supply curve right there, right? I don't know if you guys can see my cursor on here. That might be a problem. So that price hits my supply curve, right? So that's why I'm going to label this quantity QS, quantity supplied. And it should make sense. The law of supply happened. Quantity equilibrium means quantity supplied and quantity demanded are equal to one another, right? And when price changes, the law of supply and the law of demand is going to occur, and they're no longer going to equal one another. We're going to have disequilibrium. So if price goes down, the law of supply says producers are going to produce less. They're going to be incentivized to bring less to the market, right? If it's not as profitable, so quantity supplied is going to decrease. Keep following your line all the way across. Hit your demand curve here, right? So that's going to represent quantity demanded, and we know the law of demand states when price goes down, people are going to be willing and able to buy more, right? So quantity demand is going to go up. So we're no longer at equilibrium. This disappears. And now we're at disequilibrium. We have some quantity that's going to be brought to market and some quantity that people desire. So whenever we have disequilibrium, we're always going to have a surplus or a shortage. All right? I don't know how we have 21 people in here. I only have 18 people in the class. So if it helps, right, do the greater or less than symbol, right? So like if I was drawing a graph, I'd always draw like greater, right? Because QD is greater than QS. And that should be a shortage to you, right? Like if people want this much and producers are only going to bring this much to the market, we're going to have a shortage. People want more than what's going to be available. Okay? So that's a big thing. If price changes, then move along your curve. If anything else happens, then like you're going to shift either demand or supply, and you need to identify, is it demand or is it supply? Okay, next up, price for ground beef triples, right? So like this is like where some students get confused. Or like price changes, right? So I don't shift the curve. Well, price didn't change for burgers, right? We're analyzing the burger market. It says price change for ground beef, right? So something is going to happen here. Ground beef is a resource for burgers. So if the price of ground beef goes up, and I'm a producer and I got to pay triple the price for my ground beef, I'm not going to be able to buy as much ground beef. And if I have less ground beef, less resources, I'm not going to be able to produce as much. So supply will decrease. How do we draw a decrease? We draw it to the left. Find where the new X marks the spots right there, Q1 and P1. And like I said, make sure you label your graph. I know some of you guys are insane gurus, but if you don't even do like QE, Q1, you just might have a mental mistake, all right? It's that simple. Next up, we're almost there, 2 more. Human fingers found in multiple burger restaurants, right? Pretty disgusting. But if you read that headline and you're like, wow, there's human fingers like found in burger restaurants, are you going to want more or less burgers, right? I think the idea of eating a human finger would be pretty like insanely gross, right? So I would probably be discouraged from going to a restaurant to get burgers, right? So demand's going to decrease for burgers. Find where the new X marks the spot. Make sure you also label this D1, right? We're just assuming that we're going to have to draw graphs in May. And a lot of students will just draw D and then D, right? Make sure you're illustrating that's a new curve. And also like making sure these match, right? Like 1 and 1. Right, like I like some students do D2 here, then do Q2 and P2. So know that quantity is going to decrease and price will decrease. Okay. Hold on. Let me change something. Let me change something. Copy and paste failures. Perfect. All right. So price goes up, right? We already did price goes down. Price of burgers, which we are graphing, changes, right? So if the price increases from 3 to 5, did the price of resource change? No. Did the price of substitute or complement change? Right? No. The price of this good that we're graphing has changed. So that's not going to change demand. It's not going to change supply. It's just changing the price. And that's going to cause us to go to disequilibrium. So just illustrate price increasing. Draw a dashed line going over. Here it hits my demand curve. Draw it down. Label that QD. Right? Your demand curve represents at any given price how much are people going to want, how much are people going to be willing and able to buy. So we know that quantity demand is going to decrease. People are going to be less willing to buy burgers go up in price. It's the law of demand, right? But our price hits our supply curve here, and we're going to notice that supply is going to increase, right? If price goes up, it's going to signal to producers, wow, like burgers are more profitable, right? I need to go make more burgers, right? Make more money. My cost of production stayed the same, and now people are paying more. I got to make more. Well, they're going to quickly realize that no one's buying it at that high price. We're going to have a surplus. Quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded, right? So we're going to have a surplus. Whenever we're at disequilibrium, we're either going to have a shortage or a surplus, right? And if we're at equilibrium, we're not going to have a shortage or a surplus. Are we tracking on that? Can I get some I'm tracking. It's clear as mud, Mr. Moore. I got you. All right. I want to take a brief moment and look this over, right? This is one of those questions that, you know it, but you've never seen it this way, right? Like it's never been presented in this way. And I hope I didn't give you this question last year. I think I usually just save it for micro. But this is sometimes the questions where you feel good going into like a test, and then like you do bad and you're like, wow, how did I miss this question? Because it's just worded a little bit differently, right? So it says the graph above shows the market demand for good X. A movement from point A to point B would most likely be caused by what? So look it over. Look it over. Let's wait a minute. Let's wait a minute. And then if you're feeling confident, put your answer in the chat. But let's wait a minute. This one's tough. Because a lot of you guys are like, Mr. Moore, movement along the curve. Price does that. But nowhere up here does it say price decreases for good X, does it? So look it over. Coffee sips. If everyone gets it right, I'll bring Hans in. All right, let's see some answers in the chat. If you get it wrong, who cares, right? Like you took this course like a year ago, right? You may have forgotten. It's fine. It's not a big deal. What you guys got? This is one of those tough questions, right? Because you're like, I swear Mr. Moore only said when price changes, it moves along the curve, and good X is not decreasing in price. None of the answers say that. They're all supply and demand shifters. What the heck's going on here? You guys are gurus. You guys are gurus. All right, I hope I give you guys enough time to kind of like battle through that. I don't want to sit here forever and bore you guys, but I think you guys are all right. The answer is D. Why is it the answer D, right? Well, if I put a supply curve on here, right, we would start at a price of A, and if something was to increase supply, it would lower the price, and we'd move along that demand curve, right? So yeah, it would have to be some sort of increase in supply. There's nothing else that would change that unless one of the answers did say a decrease in the price of good X. Okay, so just like see how questions can be worded in a different way. Did I say decrease the supply? No, decrease the production costs would increase supply, right? Like if beef patties, instead of the beef costing $2, it costs $1, right? Then we'd be able to increase supply. So it's a definitely a tough question. Like I would guarantee you on the AP test, 30% of people would get this right. Like you're gonna be amazed on how good you are at like the new like complicated things we learn, and then like simple supply and demand is gonna trip you up. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next thing. All right, double shifting, right? You're gonna see some double shifting questions. It's a little bit more prevalent on the AP micro exam than it would be on the AP macro exam. So remember the rule: if there's a double shift, in other words, it gives you a demand shifter and it says simultaneously supply also changes, that means both curves are moving at the same time. And when that happens, there's a rule for you, and it's a simple rule. It means that either price or quantity, one of the two, are indeterminate. Okay? Whenever two curves move at the same time, right? Like you're reading a question that says consumers' incomes goes up, right? So demand changes. And production costs change, so supply changes, right? Double shift. Right, so one of the two, either price and quantity, are going to be determinant, right? Like when we were changing one curve, like we had a determination, like either price is going up or down, or quantity was going up and down, right? When they both happen at the same time, one, either price or quantity, will be indeterminate, not unchanged, right? It will change. We just don't know to the severity, right? It'll actually change. So you get a question, right? And from the question, you realize that demand increases and supply increases. Draw both curves moving at the same time. This is kind of the way I like to do it. So I would draw demand increasing and draw it like the same length, right? So it doesn't get complicated. And supply also increases. See how I like move the curves by like the same like distance from one another? When you do that, you're going to see that either price or quantity, one of those are stacked up on one another, right? Like if I move demand like way up here, like way above that, price would increase. It put an increase like aggregate, right? Price would increase, even though both of them increase. If I move supply more than I did demand, price would decrease. So we don't know. If it simply has a demand increase shifter and a supply increase shifter, we don't know to what extent those curves have moved. So with that being said, in this case, we can't make a determination on price, We don't know what happens to price. We need more information to solve the problem. We need to know that, which curve moved more than the other one. But for sure, without a doubt, we know that quantity is going to increase. When demand increases, it puts increasing pressure on quantity, and when supply increases, it puts an increasing pressure on quantity. So like no matter what, without a doubt, we can make a determination quantity is going to increase. Okay? Another trick you can do if that's kind of confusing for you is draw two graphs and draw them separately, right? I told you guys about this last year, right? So like draw supply increasing, analyze what happens to price and quantity, draw demand increasing, analyze what happens to price and quantity, and then like put them together, right? When supply increases, that puts downward pressure on price. When demand increases, it puts upward pressure on price. So we can't make a determination on price unless we know to the extent that the curve moved, right? But no matter, without a doubt, quantity is increasing in both. So we know for sure quantity is going to increase. Okay? What if supply increases and demand falls, right? Using the same method. So look at this. Both of them put downward pressure on price. So we know price will for sure, without a doubt, 100% decrease. But what will happen to quantity? Well, it depends, right? This increases quantity over here and this decreases quantity over here. So the aggregate, like net, like effect on quantity, like we don't know. We can't make a determination unless we have more information, right? So that is double shifting. That's pretty easy. So let's do one right here. It says chicken sandwich is a substitute decreases in price. So break it down, right? Is that going to affect demand or supply? Demand, right? Whenever it's saying substitutes or complements demand, unless it says what happens to supply, then answer for supply. Chicken sandwiches substitute decreases, so chicken sandwiches are cheaper. So if chicken sandwiches are cheaper and they are a substitute, right? I either eat one or the other. I'm going to move away from burgers and I'm going to desire chicken sandwiches more. I'm going to be more willing to buy chicken sandwiches because burgers are much more expensive, right? While so that's going to cause an increase in a decrease in demand for burgers, right? So decrease in demand for burgers, and then it says simultaneously the government subsidizes burger producers, which would never happen, but so that's going to cause an increase in supply. The government's giving money to business owners, right? That's the opposite of a tax. An increase in subsidies mean we're giving more money to businesses to encourage production. The net effect, quantity is indeterminate. We don't know, right? But price for sure, without a doubt, will decrease. Okay? Am I going too fast, as always? Potentially. All right, well, let's go ahead and there's no point in doing questions on here. Let's just do questions on Google Meet. I do want to show you guys this. This is pretty cool, and this is again another perk of using the YouTube Live, because at some point we're going to be getting very like graphy, right? We're going to be getting like really graph oriented, right? Check it out. This is what I was talking about yesterday. I can draw graphs. Come on. Look at that. Look at that. Now the lettering sometimes is kind of weird, but like drawing the graph like is not that bad, right? Looks kind of weird, but like I'll get better with it. And right now the stylus isn't like totally zeroed in, so like it'll look a little more clear, which is pretty sweet. So that is that. Oh, your micro, boom. So let's move over to Google Meet right now. I'll see you guys there. Oh, a 5-minute break. You guys always, whenever we go from YouTube to Google Meet, take a 5-minute break. Go get some food. You can eat on the camera. I don't care. Go stretch out. Go to the bathroom. Whatever. 5-minute break. I'm gonna be in Google Meet right away if you're like ready to go. But 5-minute break. 128. I want to see you guys. 128. All right.